Hello, hello, hello. Let's talk about seeds. Let's talk about nature. Let's talk about what is money? What is, where are we at here right now? I've got my bank of seeds here. I've got some peanuts, which I'm going to munch on as I talk perhaps here. And each one is in a nice shell, protected from the elements, at least for a certain amount of time, until someone comes along and cracks one open and eats one and chews one. There's a dimension when we talk about our issues of money here, and through the winter a seed is able to survive and be a potentiality for the coming year. That potentiality is if we do something with the seed and nurture it and put it in the condition where it will grow and create more seeds, create more of its fruit, which we can eat and enjoy, and we can give to other people, or we can receive from others, or receive from nature. Fortunately, this is not an apple tree above us, but I do have an apple seed here, and we hear about the forbidden fruit. We hear about biting the apple, but we don't hear about the seed much. But we do know about Johnny Appleseed and what he did, going across the country and planting seeds. I think there were a lot of Johnny Appleseeds in spreading the bounty that people would find later. And there are people that are doing that already, once again, and they're planting fruit trees in a commons so that people can come and just pick an apple. Who owns it? Well, it's really nature. So in terms of our understanding of money and economics at this point in time in history of man, which is, we're in a really dark period here, in that we have wars over money. The money is speculated upon. It has no connection to reality in many respects. And that's why I came here to talk about seeds, be it an apple seed, be it chickpeas in a jar, be it a almost all eaten bag of peanuts, and that the seed is a natural form of currency. It's something that that is transportable. In fact, it's meant to be transported. It's meant to be, the fruits are meant to be eaten, and then seeds spread out throughout the earth. Here I have a jar of seeds, a jar of chickpeas. They're in a bank of sorts. They're in the bank. They've been put in something to protect it from the elements. Just as a peanut is in a seed to protect it from the elements, and it wants you to crack open the safe and eat it. With this, I have to crack open this safe, and it's pretty easy. I just turn it, and here it is. It's open. The seeds are open, open sesame, and we have access to something that has real intrinsic value. In fact, all of our value still on the planet is based on seeds. It's based on food. It's based on something that's connected to something living, something that has lived, something that actually has the potential for life and to give life and to continue life. So that's, when we talk about value, that's what we're talking about.
Hello. So when I am not being a legislator, I am a social worker. And This is my office.
So you understand quite deeply the problems of poverty and
Of not enough money. The bill is H361. H361, and it's called the Vermont Dollars Bill. And what it seeks to do really is to explore the possibility of us creating a local currency, if you will, local being the state of Vermont, to supplement U.S. currency. When I started to look at sort of what it costs us to get a dollar bill, what it costs the state to borrow money, or who makes money when a dollar bill is put into circulation, I just, Wall Street, the central bank makes money. Every dollar that's put into circulation, the central bank does well. And as I have talked to people about the legality, become convinced that there is a mechanism for us to create a local currency. And the upsides is if we could create a local currency that had value to Vermonters, it would be a Vermont-only currency. It wouldn't be an exchange of goods or services that would have any value to somebody across the border, and that would focus its positive here in Vermont.
All right, so what is money? You take a look. Historically, we've had different kinds of money. Sometimes the money was red. I don't know if I have blue money here. You have all these different kinds of money. We agree that this is money. But what if we just say, this isn't really money? All those fat cats on Wall Street, they stole our money. You know what? Let them keep it. Let them have it. Because it's not really real money. It's all an accounting system. We can all agree to ourselves that from now on, all that money on Wall Street, we're not accepting it. We're not accepting this kind of money. You got a $100 bill? Congratulations, it looks pretty. Keep it, save it in a piece of plastic. It's a historical document. But if you want my food, I'm only going to accept monopoly money. Or we're only going to accept our own different kind of money that you and I agree. Let them keep all the money that they stole from us. Congratulations, we're going to create our own money.
Looks like Vermont.
It looks like Vermont, my little studio here. It looks superb.
All right, I'm ready.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm making this film. It's almost done. It's called Organic Money. And the idea being, how can we create good money for the good of all? And you've been a pioneer in this field about how we can restructure our monetary system so we change who is creating the credit for the benefit of everyone. Would you describe where you're at with public banking?
Well, we now have an institute, the Public Banking Institute, and we have quite a few coordinators in different states, and 14 states have bills pending for state-owned banks. With California, one of the last to join, which we're quite excited about because I'm in California, and we have a number of labor unions that are supporting this. The bill has made it breezed through 3 committees and is through the Assembly, and it is now going to the Senate, where it's in search of a committee in the Senate. So we're hoping something will happen before July. It's only a bill for a feasibility study, but still that will give a lot of visibility to the issue, and we can present a lot of material to the state. It seems like a no-brainer to us, but the problem is that most people don't understand it, and so their first reaction is going to be, I don't trust government, why do we need another bank? But what they don't understand, and what our job is to clarify how banking actually works, and that by the state, which has a huge fund of assets and a huge deposit base, potential deposit base, and asset base, is our state of California is putting all that money in Wall Street. And then Wall Street is using that as the basis for leverage to leverage much more money in the form of credit which they are using for their own purposes. If they were lending it back to us, then fine, but they're not. They're not making small business loans. I mean, they've cut way back. They're forcing local businesses to fund their businesses on credit cards, which is like 18% interest after, if you go over a month, which is what they typically do, because the way businesses work, they have to pay their workers and materials before they can have a product to sell to pay back the loan. So it used to be that they had these cheap credit lines with their local banks. Now all the local banks are getting taken over by the big Wall Street banks, and the Wall Street banks are cutting their credit lines and replacing them with very expensive credit cards. So that's just one thing. The small banks are floundering. The big five Wall Street banks get all the perks. They were bailed out by the government, and therefore they have better credit ratings because everybody thinks that the government is standing behind them. They can't fail. They can get very cheap money from the government or from the Federal Reserve and from the other banks. They can borrow from each other at 0.2%, the Fed funds rate, and then they use that money not to make loans to small businesses or to homeowners, but to speculate. Most of their profits now are coming from trading. So the big banks are doing fine, but the reason is that they're trading, which means speculating. They're buying and selling for their own accounts in the stock market and whatever, speculating in derivatives. They're the big derivatives holders. So that's something we want. Not only do we not want to support that, but we want to get our money back from there so that we can use those same tools, but for the public interest. In other words, if we took our own profits and our own deposits back and our own assets back, that we, the state, then we could do the same thing, set up our own bank and leverage that money into many times our asset base in credit, and then we can use that credit for public purposes. What the one model is the Bank of North Dakota. It's the one state-owned bank in the country. North Dakota is the only state that is sporting its biggest ever surplus. Most of the states are teetering on bankruptcy. North Dakota has the lowest default rate in the country, and it has the most local banks per capita, or the most banks per capita, which means the Bank of North Dakota has helped the little banks. It's not competing with them. It makes a point of not competing. What it does is it partners with the little banks and provides the capital, provides the guarantees so they can make loans.
Ellen, the Bank of North Dakota is also not FDIC insured. It's backed by the full faith and credit of North Dakota, as I understand it. In the bills that are across the country, these 14 bills, which incidentally I don't think Vermont has one yet, are they calling for FDIC insurance? And how do you feel about that or not?
Well, the bills vary, but I certainly recommend that they don't call for FDIC insurance. The problem is that everybody thinks they need FDIC insurance, but here's the reason why it makes no sense for a state-owned bank. In North Dakota, virtually all of the deposits in the Bank of North Dakota are from the state, and FDIC insurance covers only $250,000. So the state has way more to deposits than $250,000. So they're not protected by this insurance anyway. It's not going to do them any good. And what it will mean is that they're paying huge premiums to keep all the other banks afloat in other states, and it hooks them into the FDIC. So if the FDIC wants to find fault with them, maybe for some political reason, who knows, they could try to put the bank in receivership. Why should we give a quasi-federal agency that sort of leverage over our state bank when we don't need their services and it's just going to be very expensive to us? The FDIC is not really, it is government sponsored, but it's all the other banks are the contributors to it, and they obviously are what call the shots. Mm-hmm. So it's really a banker's insurance company, mm-hmm. and it's insurance we don't need, and it's something we don't want to give power over us. Mm-hmm. to. Partly the importance of it is just the education factor, and that's what we're trying to do. When you realize how banking works, and that we don't need these too big to fail banks, we can set up our own system that operates on those same principles and that provides us credit and that does not have the downsides of private profits and lack of control and huge CEO bonuses, short-term speculation, etc., all the things that are putting the country at risk with our taxpayer dollars.
Okay, so we're talking about today, a lot of people feel like Wall Street has ripped off America. We feel like they've stolen our money. And how did that happen? Did they steal our money? Well, didn't we freely deposit our money into their account? Yeah, we did. You know why? Because they said, look, trust us. Put your money in our bank account and it'll be safe. It's FDIC insured. Your money is safe with us. Trust us. Because in the olden days, it used to be just like, okay, I'll give you some food now, I'll trust you to pay me back later, because I know you and it's a small town, everybody knows each other. Society is so big now, we have to set up these institutions that are based on trust. So I put my dollar in the bank, I trust it's there when I need it. Oh my God, I had no idea that the bank is taking my $1 and lending $10 to somebody else. And they're saying to the other person, trust us, here's $10, trust us. We trusted them. They deceived us. So we don't have to trust them anymore. That's our choice. We can trust in each other. We can trust in God. We don't have to trust in the banksters. If someone trusts is something that takes a long time to earn, and it takes a second to lose it. So, since 1913, when the Federal Reserve System has been established, the banksters, the Federal Reserve banking system, has been earning our trust, perhaps. But now, recently, they've showed us that they've been deceiving us. Congress has the authority to coin money because we, the people, we elect our congressmen. They represent us, so we trust them because we voted for them. They're the ones who have the authority to make money as mentioned in the Constitution. Now, Congress has kind of subcontracted that role out to the Federal Reserve Bank. The Federal Reserve Bank doesn't represent us. They represent the rich, ruling class, minuscule, tiny elite. A tiny percent of the population kind of controls much of the wealth. I didn't vote on that. You didn't vote on that. We voted on our congressmen to represent us.
Would you speak about what your perspective is on the Federal Reserve? Is it a useful entity? Is it an entity that is constitutional? Is it our problem?
Well, the problem is that it's been there since 1913, so it would be pretty hard to overthrow it on constitutional grounds. But I would certainly argue that in the Constitution, where it says Congress shall have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof, that means create money, because they never talked about paper money at all, and certainly they didn't talk about credit cards and all the forms of money that we use today. Most money today is not paper or coins, it's digital. And that's not in the Constitution at all. But I would say that under that Implied Powers Act, that it's implied that Congress would be issuing our money, not some private entity. Now, Congress arguably had the power to delegate to a private entity, and that's what they did by passing the Federal Reserve Act. But we the people, certainly have no control over what the Federal Reserve does, and the whole point of the Constitution was to make sure that we had the power to create our own money. I would argue that. And William Jennings Bryan led the opposition to the Federal Reserve Act, and he said there was no way that he was going to approve. He was leader of the populists. They were certainly not, well, he was a Democrat, but anyway, he led the populist movement, and he said they were not going to approve any act which gave the power to print the nation's currency to a private banking cartel, which would then lend the money back to us at interest. And the act was so obscurely worded that he thought he got what he wanted. They changed the name of it, and they made it look like the government would be issuing the money. So he actually was highly approving of it. He said, at last, the government will be issuing the money. This is what we wanted all along. And that's not what it was at all. Mm-hmm. So even now, if you try to read the thing, it's very difficult to figure out exactly what they're talking about. They've made it obscure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As so many things to do with money, that's how they've gotten away with it. And you look at the IRS and look at the kind of codes that hides what it really is or isn't. I have another question. And what I want to ask you is, this might be my personal thing that I leave on the cutting room floor, but I want to ask if when we do have the public banking in place, not, I'm sure it's just a matter of time, will we not have to do the kind of bonding that we're doing now? We'll get a more simplified version of creating credit for the things that we want to see. You know how we're creating bonds to get things done. How will that affect that?
In North Dakota, for here in California, for example, if you want to raise money, you have to get approval from the voters. You have to go out and raise a bond issue. It takes a long time. You don't know if you're going to get approval. For this reason, they have to keep these huge rainy day funds, which are a waste of assets, and they're invested in Wall Street, and they're giving that leverage and power to Wall Street. So in North Dakota, the government, the state government, and the local governments have a credit line with the Bank of North Dakota. So if they want money, they just go to the bank and get the money. I mean, they still have to pay that back, so they have to raise the money, and they do a bond issue eventually, but they can take their time with it. It's like a business, you know, they've now got this credit line, and so they can just proceed with what they want to do. And obviously, if it's a paying thing, if it's like, say, whatever, building a railroad, then it would generate profits, and that would pay back the loan. So it's much more efficient to tap up your own bank at 0% interest. Since you own the bank, you get it for 0% interest, than to have to do a bond issue.
Relaxing here in my home with my beautiful family, who are nothing less than beautiful, who I hold in the vastness of my heart. All right.
I want to hear about your proposal and how it affects our existing monetary system.
Okay.
And first, I guess we need to introduce you.
Oh.
David Sneakus.
David, yes. David Sneakus, the funny way of saying that if you can't get any...
Tell me how to say it.
The easy way to remember it is if you can't get any tickets to my cooking class, Dave will sneak us in. Yeah.
Because you're a macrobiologist.
A macrobiologic counselor and chef.
Yeah.
And coach.
Okay. So how did you get interested in money?
Oh, I got interested in money a few years after 9/11, when I found out that a third building went down about 4 or 5 years ago. And I read the paper fairly well. I thought it was a person that knew about the news, but I never heard that the third building, number 7, went down on 9/11. So I said, something's wrong here. And I tried to figure out what it was. In my opinion, in my own research, my own abilities from the past in analyzing the news and what's true and not true, and knowing for myself what I felt was important. So I researched, and I said, I'll follow the money. And I followed the money to find out that these things are happening for the benefit of the monetary system, the usury monetary system, which one word I came to conclusion was usury. Usury, the unsustainable use of interest. Any amount of interest on money is unsustainable into the future. In the beginning, it looks easy and payable, but when you borrow money from the bank, you have to pay interest. The principal is created by the borrowing signature, promise to pay, but the interest is not created. So when many of us borrow money from the bank, the interest is not created. So where does that money come from? Someone has to foreclose, or someone has to go bankrupt. It's inevitable. That's the unsustainability that I'm talking about.
And everybody else has to compete like.
And everybody has to compete and or steal or connive or compete in a monetary system that should not that shouldn't be. You and I and anyone else can exchange our services for someone else's equal time and services, and it's not. It's not a honest system that we're living in. It's a corrupt, deceptive system. So everybody's trying to cheat everybody else, everybody's bribing everybody else, everybody's stealing the resources of the earth and giving people low-paying jobs and not productive in a sense of keeping the earth alive and well and environmentally clean and mentally sane. I think there's an insanity with our current monetary system.
So what is your vision of hope, and how do we amend the system so that we can have hope for our future?
Right. One of the ways is through a public bank, and that is where we, the people, put the money in the bank through our either taxes or investments or deposits, and the bank, the people in the bank, because banks are a necessary part of our society today, and without them, the economy basically, quote unquote, might collapse in that large sense. But if we can use the money from that we have to pay and currently paying an interest, for example, in Massachusetts, the debt service is $2.4 billion. $2.4 billion.
In other words, the interest that Massachusetts is paying on money that they borrowed from other banks.
It's principal and interest, so it's called debt service. So principal interest amounts to $2.4 billion, and you can find that in the CAFR report of 2010, page 50, and that is paid to private banks, to Wall Street, to money that goes outside of the current monetary system that could be created in Massachusetts alone. So Massachusetts would create its own bank. It would buy the debt, which is $24 billion, okay, and not have to pay the $2 billion annually every year in debt service. And the budget gap just happens to be $1.5 billion. So I put the two together, and I end up with $500 million. So we actually create a bank and get everything ready for the economy, in which the bank would be lending money to those things that don't necessarily always bring in the quick money. When banks lend money today, you have to have assets, you have to have collateral, you have to have a lot of credibility. That's why they lend money, because for those who have credit, they can pay back 2.5 times the loan. So that if that people have the stamina and the ability to do that, that's great. And they can keep their money, just as we have private schools and public schools. We have where you can buy books online, or you can go to the public library and borrow books. Same thing with banks. We have private banks, and then we can have public banks for the people to use.
So you've introduced a bill?
I've introduced a bill. It's called 1192, House Bill 1192, in which I offer what I believe is the greatest value and greatest benefit to the state of Massachusetts, which is a Massachusetts State Bank. Why? It varies, as I said before, to stop the $2.4 billion in debt service that we're paying, okay, and then it's instead invest in Massachusetts jobs and services that are currently being cut. No more budget cuts. We would have a problem of surplus if we had a Massachusetts State Bank. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Is there anywhere that this has been done, or is this just a whole new?
No, this is not a whole new concept. In fact, the state of North Dakota is a model for this proposal. And that Bank of North Dakota has a $1 billion surplus for their people.
Today?
Today.
And
Yes,
has?
last year. And has over the years, is the only state in the State of the Union, United States, that has its own bank. And like I said before, we would end, why would the bank, we would end usury, basically the unsustainable practice of paying high interest rates, And we changed money from debt to the full faith and credit of, by, and for the people.
Do you have anybody to sponsor this?
The bill is sponsored by Representative Kay Kahn, my representative in district, and she's enthusiastic about it, and she's going forward. I've met with her 2 or 3 times. I'm feeding her information on prosperity handbooks, Return to Prosperity, and things that the Public Banking Institute of America is putting out. I am the state coordinator for the Public Banking Institute of America.
So I take it that you want to increase the well-being of the majority of people through having access. And how do you overcome people's acceptance of being in debt, their expectation of being a debt slave? How do you change their expectation to one of abundance? How do you overcome the limits of people's imagination or knowledge?
It's an overtime process, and I practice here at home how to do that. It's going to be a long journey for educating the people on this new way of thinking, this new way of accepting money, not as a commodity, but just as a transaction. So that when we're all better off because we don't have to pay the debt that we really don't owe. If we create our money interest and debt free, then the money circulates in the system, just as if this table where the sovereign state of Massachusetts or even the sovereign United States of America, that money would stay in the system and it doesn't have to be put out. For example, if this cup represents the state of Massachusetts and we take out the interest of $2 billion every year, year after year, eventually the cup gets empty. And that's what's going on today, then very close to fiscal irresponsibility. It's nonsensical, and austerity and budget cuts are not the answer to create prosperity in the state of Massachusetts or anywhere.
So what you are your merchants in a trading circle, your merchants at the market, your merchants in the local economy. Really what you are is the merchants in a local economy, your tradespeople.
I'm selling cooking utensils.
Cooking utensils, and you have
Fine art prints.
fine art.
And I have a very miscellaneous assortment of things.
You look like a drugstore.
Yeah, well, you're a dollar store is what you are.
I have pot holders.
Beach balls.
Books, lighting store.
We have 27 items. How much money do we need in circulation so that we can potentially exchange all of these items?
It's 9 because there are 9 players.
Okay. All right.
Each item's worth $1, right?
Everything's worth $1.
We all have 3 and there's 9 of us.
Yep.
That's
So
27.
hopefully each one of those dollars would go to each merchant. That's the
All right.
plan.
I'm somebody from outside this little economy. This is a little economy we have here, right? And I'm going to buy that football. Okay, so when
Karen, can I have one of your,
once you sell something, you
Okay. I
immediately
do want this one.
buy something once you sell something.
Oh, I want that scraper.
A Band-Aid, please. Thank you.
oh, I like those socks.
I like the strainer spoon.
That's how the San Francisco. Thank you.
And I would really love one of those beach balls.
Argyle socks.
No, I'm from China, and I'd love to sell you this cup. They're really nice. They're well made. They're cheap. They're just cooperate, please.
Outsiders throwing us on.
Okay,
Now what?
so what happened?
Oh, our money's gone.
Very
We have no money.
Where did it go?
It's been usurped.
And now the trading stopped.
It's been usurped.
We
What are we
started
gonna
off
do?
guessing with how much how much money it would take to exchange our items. So how much did we buy? But now we're not selling anymore, are we?
No, because we've let the money go out of the community.
That's right.
Yeah.
We got to make a living in here, right? We're business people. We're sitting on our merchandise because.
It's not selling.
Well, no, we don't.
We don't have any money.
We don't have any.
Nobody
So
has any money.
We could print our own money.
Yeah.
We're stuck with rectangles, we're not gonna go with any other shape.
Yeah, I think we decided, there's no decisions that we actually made in
That's
black.
not on the list either, is that it would be, or maybe
No, it is. You actually
Yeah.
emailed it out. Our bills will be the same size as US dollars.
Yes, okay.
And the same denomination.
All right, so some of the different names that we're voting on in terms of what would be our local alternative currency here for Transition Putney are either community currency or Putney community currency, energy units, trade dollars or Putney trade dollars, transition notes, transition investment notes, Wyndham Wampum, and NYT, not there yet notes.
Anyone object to words around the edge? Because I had a lot of fun with that.
No,
That was
not
nice.
at all. That's good.
That
The
can,
more,
also, that can also be somewhat of a, depending on the printing method, the tiny print around the edges could be an added security feature because depending on the printing
change
process,
maybe.
it's harder if you try to do a laser copy and then print it. So I don't know how
copy it,
sophisticated we're going to get, but
I like that idea.
and money is a symbol. So because money is a symbol, you want to use a lot of words to convey what are the symbols, what are our value, what's our value system,
Yeah.
our values. Yeah.
that's great.
I did spend a lot of time playing with this design, but I think it's a little too complicated, and there are elements in there that are indecipherable. So I think it needs to be simplified a little bit.
That's true in this one too, though.
Sure.
You know, unless you're really a money buff and you get into deciphering the various bits and
Well,
pieces.
it's more true with this one. I mean,
It
you
does
look at
kind of
this.
just, you know, there's a lot in there. You can see there's a lot in there, and you don't necessarily know what everything in there.
Yeah, but if you look at this, there's like the chevron symbols,
Sure.
and there's like, opium poppies and machine guns. I mean, it's like, they took this, they
Yeah, and they
really
played
went
with
to
it.
town
Yeah,
and
yeah,
played
yeah.
with it, yeah. And there's the
It's
trade,
fun
there's
if
the
you're
trade
into it.
towers, and
You know, and if,
yeah.
Who did that?
was
It's not necessary.
There's a whole group of people that does the fraudulent event notes that are.
Isn't there something that's like a
Very good
camel
artists.
coming around the pyramids? Something like that.
Yeah, it's on here.
There's all kinds of stuff.
You know,
Yeah,
the
the tricks.
fun
Yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of-
Here's the pyramids.
The lights on in the White House window or something like
This
that.
is this is like the totalitarian information awareness. You know that?
This has been introduced, and it's actually, they're discussing it now?
Vermont House of Representatives, they're discussing it. I could read it to you if you want. Only 3 pages.
Good.
All right. I think it's pretty cool. Introduced by Representative Fisher of Lincoln County. Subject, commerce and trade, companion currency, Vermont dollars. But in a nutshell, it essentially, it's a bill that seeks to authorize a nonprofit corporation to print local currency for the state of Vermont.
The whole state.
What's interesting about this, though, is that it actually empowers the government of Vermont to tell a company, a nonprofit, to do this. So it sort of sets up, sort of a structure.
Like we've talked about this idea of perhaps decoupling from the U.S. dollar at some point. Somebody's going to have to, be responsible for that decision and responsible to that decision and responsible to all the people who have money outstanding at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it could just be us, but we need to formalize
Well, I think the
it in some way.
decoupling, I totally agree with you, but I think the decoupling was, we were thinking if the U.S. dollar tanks, we'd want to be able to not tank with it.
Yeah.
So anyone who's holding Vermont dollar or Putney dollars or whatever would be in a better position, especially in the local economy if the U.S. dollar suddenly dives.
Right.
It's been my goal to create a local currency that is multi-layered in the sense that one layer or one function of it is just a local currency that circulates and creates value within the community by not leaving the community. Okay. The second goal is to use it as some sort of leverage device to help us create and implement renewable energy projects, hence the name renewable energy currency, so that either it is an investment vehicle or it is somehow a reward for investing in green energy, and we haven't figured out the details of any of that.
common good economy movement started with noticing that the people who control the wealth and power in the world are making a mess of things. Our current economic system is not working for the planet, it's not working for most people. While some people, a very small number of people, have a huge amount of money, most of us are struggling to make ends meet. And what we really need is a way for people in individual communities to get together and plan together what we need to do in our communities to make sure that everybody gets enough to eat, to make sure everybody has a home, satisfying work, health care, and a sustainable environment. And we need a way of funding those plans. We've seen that, especially being here in New England, we've seen that people in communities can generally make pretty sensible decisions about what we need to do in our community to provide for our citizenry. So what we've designed is a way for people to do that, and it's based on having a bank to fund our plans and being able to decide the lending priorities for that bank and decide how the profits are distributed for the common good. That's Common Good Bank. And this very simple idea is the essence of the common good economy. So over the past 9 years, thousands of people around the world have gotten excited about this, mostly in the United States. And we've put together a team of people who are working actively to raise money to fund the startup of Common Good Bank and thereby the start of this common good economy system. We have a detailed business plan. We have a detailed website that tells all about the project and how people can get involved, how people can become members and help fund the project by being essentially co-owners of the bank. It's a model like cooperative, so we buy a member share, but also since it's a bank, you also commit to move your money to the common good economy once that becomes possible, once the bank has a charter.
So one of the most amazing currencies lasted for over 700 years in England. King Henry was aware that in the 700s that there was not enough money. There wasn't enough gold and silver coins, there wasn't enough, they created market money on market days, but he decided that all the large transactions and the entire administration of the kingdom should be done with a currency that was basically accounting that he would issue. So whenever the king wanted to accomplish something, he would issue a tally stick in order to accomplish that. And tally stick is a stick of wood, and it's polished and it's engraved, but it's notched, and the size of the notch is the amount of money. So 1,000 pounds is like that, and a 1 pound is a little saucelet. So once you've made the tally stick for the certain amount, then you split it down the middle, and the king keeps the 1/2 and spends the other half into the economy, where it can circulate, and it's worth this much. When it comes back to the king in payment of taxes, and you have to pay your taxes with tally sticks, when it comes back to the king in payment of taxes, it gets matched up with the other half and burned. Why did they need to split it? So you can't counterfeit it. If there's any doubt, now you can bring it back to the king and check it out. The penalty, of course, for counterfeiting a tally stick is off with your head. So there was very little counterfeiting, but we could always tell whether somebody was counterfeiting, because it wouldn't fit. Anyways, for 700 years, that was the currency of England. And the money changers, who become the bankers, they wanted to get back to gold, because they control the gold, and if they control the gold, then they can control the whole economy. They can control the whole country. So they demanded payment in gold. And during the early 1600s, late 1500s, this was a raging controversy. Could you make a contract in which you lent gold and you had to be paid back in gold? It went through the courts, such as they were in those days. And it went back and forth, and it got appealed and appealed and appealed until finally the House of Lords had to decide. It's called the Mixed Moneys Case. The contract was for payment in gold. The payment was made with a tally stick. Is this legitimate? The House of Lords made the most profound, absolutely clear statement that absolutely everybody has to know. Money is whatever the king says it is. When we had the American Revolution, Tom Paine pointed out that the American Revolution was won before it began, because it was won in the hearts of the people. We came to understand that we were passing the sovereignty from the king to ourselves. We were all going to be sovereign. The important thing was that once the people are sovereign, then issuing the money, which is a sovereign prerogative, money is whatever the sovereign says it is, whatever the sovereign provides to the people as the means of exchange. When the people are sovereign, then we can have, let's call it organic money. We can issue the money as we need it to effect the transactions that we want to make. Money does not ever, ever, ever need to be scarce or hard to come by. However, unless it's legal tender, that is, you have to accept it, the issue is how easily can you spend it. You can only spend the money that you create together among people who agree to accept it. And therefore, organic money would be based on that understanding. If we accept this as the means of exchange, using the dollars and cents, using the unit of value that we're all familiar with, if we could just agree to accept this organic money in payment, money would never have to be scarce. And the question, where are you going to get the money, doesn't arise. The question is, what do you want to do, and is there a demand for it? As soon as we sit down together and look at each other and say, what do we want, and know that we are sovereign and we can issue the money for it, everything changes. So organic money will overcome the negative determining power of our monetary system. Organic money will return the issuing power to the people where it rightfully belongs.
We're talking about money and the economy. I want to introduce a new concept many people have not heard about recently. It's called the gift economy. You can trace it back to when humans lived in tribes. The way it worked was, I'm a farmer, he's a hunter, this person takes care of the children, this person makes our clothes. So what happens is, this person gives me clothing, this person gives me the free gift of daycare. We're all just giving things freely to each other. That can happen. It's fair. It's called sharing the natural abundance that we have, that came from God, Mother Nature, the universe. It was here before we are. So that's another thing to think about. Instead of selling things, just give things to people you know. When you give something to someone, it creates a sense of a social obligation.
So we're here at the Brattleboro Time Trades potluck, monthly potluck. My name is Dan Ridgway. I'm a board member on the Brattleboro Time Trade and one of the early members from the early days of the Brattleboro Time Trade. We have a really good turnout tonight with some really fantastic food that lots of folks have brought. And there's just lots of networking and connections being made here amongst many different members of the Time Bank and I hear a lot of chatter about different exchanges and services going on, which is really exciting to see happen.
And I'll be farming, so I probably will offer food with that cooking, and some light bookkeeping. But I'm excited to get haircuts and acupuncture.
I make apple pies.
Can offer, small carpentry, building.
So I'm offering piano lessons to children, not working my way up to adults.
I just wanted to take a minute to talk about how time banks work and what the purpose of a time bank is. We're bringing it back down to the community level, to a grassroots level, and we're just basically bartering on the most fundamental level. By earning hours instead of dollars to spend on services, you are redefining work. It reinforces that everybody, regardless of their economic status, their social status, their class, their education level, they have something to offer that's of value to other people.
Well, I think that this spot is just it's a place of trying to make a decision of whether to do the next song or not the next song. Right in this spot earlier this day, I had my eyes closed, and I just want to tell you, I got duck. I was going to be a duck, and I was like, and that was the impulse, and it was what I really was, and then all of a sudden I thought, well, because that's what I first thought, why don't I try a whole new life? Why don't I become a cow? And so I was like, I'll be the cow instead of the duck. And then immediately I started asking, like, why did I make that decision? I felt like there were these guys with hands looking over, trying to decide whether should the women be voted for. And then I tried to think if it should be me or if it should be a group. And it was like having all this problem. I was like, no, I'm going to stick to the cow. I felt the cow, like maybe because I felt duck so fast that everyone is going to be a duck and I have to stand with the solidarity of the minority. And then I thought, well, the cows are bigger than the ducks. Maybe the ducks, I know, the cow. And so I started going, I land on it, I go, and I swear to you, I don't hear another in the whole room. It's just filled with quack, 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 quack. And I'm feeling like I feel like I'm this little calf coming out. I can't even stand up, and I'm like, where's my mama? Where's my mama? And I'm thinking like, I need that big little milk thing. And then I think, well, isn't that kind of like what the banks are? Like you come, you get some money, you're like, oh, I got some money, and then you look around, you're like, why did I get it? What am I doing? What am I going to do here? I know I want to be here, but why do I want to be here? And then where's the bank? Where's the bank? It's my mother.
We are going to be birthing a new humanity. We are birthing a humanity that's going to be conscious, that's going to embody all of our values, loving, compassionate, generous, authentic. We are giving birth to a new humanity, so we are actually the global midwives and global mid-husbands of a new humanity.
This is Mary, Queen of Scots. She's very special.
She and I were discussing the other day about organic money, and she and I both agree it's the way to go.
Hallelujah! 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 Organic money!
Hi, I'm Emily Payton, and I've made this film. I hope you've benefited from it. What I've tried to do is succinctly tell you many of the solutions in 1 hour that have taken me many years to research. But there is one tool that I've left out, and that is the creation of a statewide credit card. Now, a statewide credit card is extremely beneficial to small businesses. Why? Because the use of credit cards and debit cards at small businesses is costing them hundreds, in some cases thousands of dollars every month. So were we to make a statewide credit card here in Vermont so that a Vermonter could go and put value on a debit card and then purchase things from the merchants, and the fees could be reduced for using that or even eliminated, then the small businesses owners would have anywhere from $400 to $1,000 more each month to work with, which is an enormous value. Here in Vermont, we have a politician, Anthony Polina, who has been working on that, and I think it's an excellent idea. I want to also say that I feel in my heart that the majority of people, the majority of working people, in fact, people in general, will benefit from and also yearn to move to a gift economy. And I don't think that that can happen overnight or as our next step, because as we see, our mechanisms of economy are in a state of flux. We're in a state of crisis globally, and we are changing and altering them. So while a gift economy would be the ultimate ideal expression of human capacity for compassion and for grace, I think we need to use the monetary system a few steps further, and that public banking, time trade, gifting are all the steps to get us there. And of course, right now, we're in a critical place with the planet, and we need to honor the planet and put the restoral of a harmonious environment above the accumulation of profit or wealth. And for that reason, I really like this statement. Now I'll leave you with this. Always remember that the Creator is greater than the sum of all money. And thank you for watching and learning. I'm Emily Payton in Putney, Vermont.